Do understand that I don't believe everybody.
Right.
Like the accusations are way too fast, and it's wow. Like it's like I'm like.
No, we discussed it.
You freeze. You're in shock. I mean, children aren't supposed to handle that sort of stuff.
There are other people within Diddy's operation who we can point to as playing a major role as...
Hey, this is how it works, pure and simple. And this is why I got into it, and this is why I have power. This is how it works, and you have to understand that. That does not carry the day.
Tom Hanks and Jairus are attempting to flee the U.S. after the FBI made its first arrest in the Diddy case. 50 Cent is exposing those involved in a child abuse ring, with victims as young as 7 revealing shocking details. Stay tuned as we uncover the dark side of Hollywood, where 50 Cent claims Tom Hanks helped cover up Diddy's actions.
The idea that there are sexual predators in power, not just in Hollywood, I think all across any place there's a boss with underlings in any corporation or any industry, you have a type of sexual politics that goes on that can slide in between appropriate ethics and decorum to inappropriate behavior to the point of harassment and sexual predatory behavior.
Well, I mean, I think people understand that, but the larger question is there a culture of complicity in Hollywood where women are afraid to speak up because they'll be blacklisted, men are afraid to speak up because either they're out of the same fear or they just think, well, this is the way the system works.
I think there are people that say, hey, this is how it works, pure and simple. And this is why I got into it, and this is why I have power. This is how it works, and you have to understand that. That does not carry the day. Complicity is also complicity. The people who know, well, look, this is how we do business, and that's what it's got to be done. I'm sorry it's like that. So beware. That's also present, without a doubt, but it does not carry the day. There's also people that were afraid to speak out, who were victims, that did not go forward, that signed negotiated settlement deals of which a non-disclosure agreement was part and parcel to it. That also does not.
50 Cent has been the only A-list celebrity to speak out against Diddy from the beginning, while others stayed silent or distanced themselves only after the producer's disgrace became public. Since the 90s, 50 Cent has consistently exposed the truth, despite Hollywood's efforts to cover up the abuse. Celebrities like Aaron Carter, Justin Bieber, Usher, and more were victims of children, yet no one intervened to help them, even with clear signs of abuse.
Change is right there. In the relationships, when you start doing things that or trying to recreate another version of it, it's not like everybody can do it. You know, Jay produced a few things and it was awfully quiet.
Before present day, okay? Because we don't have to get into what's going on right now. But you and Puff haven't liked each other business-wise for a long time.
Oh, that's why. It's only business. It was really, away from that, I explained why I didn't hang out with him, right? Because it's a little fluffy stuff going on.
It's not your scene.
It's not my style.
Not your scene.
They hug you from the front and the back at the same time.
It's not your thing.
It's not my thing, bro. No,
you're not a hug front and back at the same time.
Do understand that I don't believe everybody.
Right.
Like the accusations are way too fast, and it's wow. Like it's like I'm like.
No, we discussed that too.
Yo, you know they got a hotline. You heard about the hotline?
Yeah. You think 50 doesn't know about the hotline?
Bugs me. His name is Bugs me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Bugs me. He was the Sean Watt, the one who ran from Sean. Okay. But what was the original annoyance between? It was just like,
well, when you start to get the momentum, he's like, yo, young guy, we gotta hang out. Yo, when we going, you know.
So you felt like he was trying to dim your light early in your career?
It wasn't that. It was really just I got uncomfortable with him because the way he was acting to try and get me to hang out with him was like, yo, I'll take you shopping. Like, and I'm like, what you mean? Like, that's something you say to a woman you're attracted to, maybe.
Right.
Just what I'm
So you felt like he was trying to play you like you didn't have your own money, you didn't have your own shit.
It was weird because not only do I not go shopping like that, but he knew Misa was getting clothes for me, like was a stylist for me at points. Right. So why are you asking me to go shopping? You're asking me. It's just weird, bro. Like, and now you start to see a lot of the weird stuff that was there. It looks like it all lines up, don't it? It was not in the closet. It was in front of you, and you wasn't seeing it because you see the beards, or you see the girls. So you didn't look at them the way It actually is.
Child actors had been speaking out for years about the abuse, but their voices were ignored because some of the biggest names in the industry were complicit. Diddy, connected to top producers, executives, and even U.S. presidents, had the power to silence the truth. It's no coincidence that just weeks before the raid on his mansion, Diddy was handed the key to New York.
Did the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Miami do it? No, they didn't. Did California do it? No, they did not. The Southern District of New York, they took it upon themselves and put on that raid and everything based on the information they found in Cassie lawsuit and the information they found in Little Rod lawsuit. But all this is bigger than Diddy. It's bigger than Diddy, bro. Because you know who else they was doing investigation on during that whole time period? It was the mayor and the politicians in New York City. They turn around and give him the key to the city. All the mayor people that he brought on here in New York City are all resigning. They all resigning. People ain't gonna tie this together, but if you look at it, you have to say, because of Mayor Adams and his relationship with Diddy, it brought on the Southern District of New York to start investigating Diddy on civil lawsuits that was put against him. Because the feds is going after all these politicians.
Diddy managed to avoid arrest for so long because he wasn't acting alone. He had a network of people complicit in the abuse. Allegedly, Diddy even tried to recruit 50 Cent into his network, but 50 refused, feeling uncomfortable with Diddy's advances. According to 50 Cent, Diddy was romantically interested in him and made several advances, but 50 rejected them and stepped away.
Who were signaling to us that something was very wrong with Diddy, and they were virtually just being laughed out of the room. One person who was always anti-Diddy and was always speaking about Diddy as a problematic person was 50 Cent. And it turns out that it's just been announced that he's created a docu-series on Netflix. I can't wait to see this. And he is saying that it's a complex narrative that spans decades, which we are obviously realizing this, which should really make it clear to you that Hollywood is a tremendous evil. Everybody colluded to protect these secrets. They all were aware of it and few spoke out. So Netflix is producing the docuseries from Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent, about the charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, as well as sexual assault and violent abuse allegations against Diddy Combs. And Alexandria Stapleton will be directing the project. I will be definitively watching this. They describe this as a story with significant human impact. It's a complex narrative spanning decades, not just the headlines or the clips that we have seen so far. And 50 Cent is exclusively speaking to Variety, saying that he remains steadfast in his commitment to give a voice to the voiceless and to present authentic and nuanced perspectives. While the allegations are disturbing, we urge all to remember that Sean Combs' story is not the full story of hip-hop and its culture. We aim to ensure that individual actions do not overshadow the culture's broader contributions. Now, I would actually beg to differ. I would beg to differ on this because, like I said, I read that book, Hollywood Babylon, and as it traced, and again, that was movie culture, so they were kind of getting into the beginning of film, silent films, and making it clear that it was the carnies, the carnival people, the freaks that established Hollywood, and they were creating characters, and these people were drug addicted, sex addicted, and essentially they turned them into stars on screen because in many ways, they wanted to emulate, mock, and destroy.
50 Cent is one of the few speaking out about the alleged abuse, and others may remain silent due to fear or because of the leverage Diddy holds over them. Allegedly, Diddy has powerful connections and has used them to intimidate and silence people. Sources close to Diddy and even the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District have confirmed that Diddy used blackmail and his influence to keep witnesses quiet and protect himself from exposure.
And these people, a lot of these people were also aspiring young artists in the music industry. And then these parties were sponsored by Motown Records CEO, Universal Records CEO. This goes all the way to the top. And so you get these people in compromising situations. The drinks were laced, the videotapes were hot, and then at the end of the day, you wake up the next morning, what did I do? And then they have compromising material on you. And then they can guide your career. They could kill your career, but they got you. And it wasn't just people in the music business. As you said, there were athletes, there were celebrities, there were politicians, people from the royal family. And we were also told by the former bodyguard that Diddy was an FBI informant. So he was a snitch and was feeding information to the feds. And we don't know what that means. We haven't been able to confirm it, but even Little Rod said it's not just like Epstein, it could be.
Justin Bieber never directly named Diddy, knowing that no one would protect him. Usher, who was supposed to look out for Justin, allegedly handed him over to Diddy. It's also claimed that Usher himself was a victim of abuse. Hollywood has a long history of silencing victims, with figures like Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Danny Masterson all facing abuse allegations, yet nothing was done to stop them.
Someone who's spoken out about this and is painfully aware is former child star Corey Feldman.
You freeze. You're in shock. I mean, children aren't supposed to handle that sort of stuff. I can tell you that the #1 problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh, yeah. I was surrounded by them.
For years now, as evidenced on Nightline in 2011, Corey Feldman has been claiming that he and his good friend, the late Corey Haim, were victims of molestation when they were young actors. Last year, he opened up to our Alex Hudgens.
Why didn't you come
Kids are
forward then?
scared. You know, kids don't think I'm gonna go. First of all, for me, the person that was doing it to me the most, you know, well, I mean, I could say that the two people that did it to me were both close friends of mine, or so I thought.
Feldman claims Haim endured more than him. In his book, Choreography, he alleges that Haim was raped on the set of the 1986 film Lucas. The following year, 1987, their film, The Lost Boys, came out.
It was when we were both on the set of Lost Boys that, you know, things were happening to both of us, you know, not from anyone on the set, might I clear that up, but, you know, outside elements.
How did people not know when these are two, or did they know and they just weren't doing anything about it?
I mean, I know he told a lot of people. That's the thing that's so upsetting to me. It's not like it's just me that knows this story.
Other people know.
A lot of people know.
They're still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
Back in 2013, on The View, Feldman was insistent that perpetrators are still out there, but says he won't name names due to statute of limitation laws in California. He also has another reason that echoes something we've heard regarding Harvey Weinstein.
From what I've seen, every time somebody tries to bring up a public name and they have a lot of money and power and a publicity machine behind them, the person who does the accusing is the one that ends up looking bad.
They would pull away the better looking younger kids and keep them for their own after party, and it would turn into a pool party. And then they'd have their rules. Oh, there's no swimsuit.
With Diddy now behind bars, those who worked with him are also being arrested. This has become an international operation. Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, was recently arrested for his involvement in a sex trafficking ring that allegedly targeted men. Victims were reportedly pressured into compliance and often drugged to facilitate abuse. Each new story reveals more horrifying details of the abuse that occurred.
Former boss of the fashion giant Abercrombie & Fitch and his British partner have been arrested on charges of running a prostitution and international sex trafficking business following a 2-year-long BBC investigation. The FBI began looking into the claims that Mike Jeffries and his partner Matthew Smith sexually exploited and abused men at events they hosted in their New York residences and hotels around the world. Lawyers for both men and a third man who's been arrested have previously denied any wrongdoing. They'll appear in court on Friday. Rihanna Croxford broke the story that led to the FBI's initial investigation. Here's her report.
Mike Jeffries, the mogul behind a global fashion brand. His vision made billions for Abercrombie & Fitch. He's now facing criminal charges.
To anyone who thinks they can exploit and coerce others by using the so-called casting couch system, this case should serve as a warning. prepare to trade that couch for a bed in federal prison.
The BBC spent 2 years investigating allegations of sexual exploitation, unearthing evidence spanning nearly a decade. After we broadcast our report last year, the US authorities began their own investigation. This morning, the FBI arrested the former fashion boss and his British partner in Florida.
Traded like a commodity.
Evidence gathered by the BBC found there was a highly organised operation involving this middleman, James Jacobson, now also arrested. In the past few months, I've spoken with more men who attended these events, 20 in total. Some told me they were tricked and abused, others that they were injected with drugs. A lawyer for Mr. Jeffries told the BBC, "We will respond in detail to the allegations after the indictment is unsealed and when appropriate, but plan to do so in the courthouse, not the media." Tonight, Mike Jeffries was released on bail. If convicted, he and the others accused could face life in.
Diddy's downfall began after Cassie's lawsuit in November 2013. She filed a civil lawsuit against him, and just 3 days later, Diddy settled. He knew that one lawsuit would lead to more, which is exactly what happened. No one had ever filed a lawsuit against him before, but Cassie had video evidence of the abuse, which led to his quick settlement. Now, as footage of Diddy with minors begins to leak, more victims are coming forward, aiming to take down Diddy and everyone involved with him.
The arrest on sexual abuse and racketeering charges of Sean Combs, known alternately as Puffy or Diddy, sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world and is sparking vigorous debates online about who knew what, when, and for how long, and who else might have been involved. Combs insists he's innocent, but a judge rejected his lawyer's bail proposal because he had concerns that Combs might try to tamper with witnesses. Combs' downfall was years in the making and involved the abuse of Cassie Ventura, his former girlfriend, and others. According to friend of the show Teray, who has new reporting on what led to the downfall of Diddy, Combs' descent into darkness was due in part to, quote, drug abuse. It's central to why he's now facing a mountain of serious charges. When Diddy and Cassie were together, he dragged Cassie down into addiction. After she left him, someone said, she went to rehab to get control of her life, which led to a process of healing, not just from the drugs, but from the abuse. From there, she found the courage to speak up. Joining me now is Teray, who, as I mentioned, has been reporting about Diddy on his Substack, Culture Fries, and on his Teray Show podcast. Teray, my friend, talk about more that you learned about what led to Diddy's downfall.
Well, you know, Cassie was recording an album for about 10 years. She made a ton of songs, she made collabs, she had producers. She thought she was actually working on an album. That was ultimately a giant pacifier to keep her happy while Diddy was actually using her for other things, right? For the freak-offs that we're talking about. The album never had a release date. It was never really going to come out. He was just using her for that purpose. So that's part of where you get into racketeering, that there's all these people that he's using in a business context to have her at his beck and call in this other nighttime context. And it's really disgusting, and he really robs her of her spirit and her time that she could have used to become a great artist. And when Kim Porter passes away, and this is from a story that I'm working on for the Substack, it'll come out later this week. When Kim Porter passes, Diddy is so distracted and devastated that Cassie's able to get away from him. She gets pregnant and she gets married, and then she's in a supportive environment. Her parents are around her, her husband, she has friends around her. She goes to rehab, and there she finds her voice to be able to speak up for the person she used to be, right? When she was under his control, because she's not that person anymore. And when she gets to that place in her life, she starts to speak up, because there's so many people who wanted to speak out against him and were afraid. And when she finds the courage to speak up about her truth, then others are able to come forward, and then it all falls apart for him.
You know, racketeering implies that there are more than one person involved, though. Is there, and that is the question a lot of people are asking, is who else is involved in this?
There are other people within Diddy's operation who we can point to as playing a major role as far as security, as far as procuring things, as far as getting people into his orbit. I would imagine that many of those people are currently talking to federal law enforcement trying to save themselves from going to prison. Others are sitting there nervous. Not everyone is talking, but surely some of them are. So, I mean, there's a lot of people lining up to tell the story, but I think a lot of the evidence is going to come from what Sean himself.
8 of the freak-off videos that Diddy allegedly filmed have reportedly made their way into the FBI's hands, with Courtney Burgess, a source close to Diddy's ex-wife Kim Porter, allegedly handing them over to Homeland Security. These videos are said to incriminate Diddy and everyone connected to him in the abuse of minors. The details of the abuse are shocking, and anyone found to be involved is expected to face legal consequences and potentially be sent to jail.
And those statements include descriptions of what the witness says he saw on those tapes. So I asked him about that, and he answered what he could, given the limitations imposed on him after testifying before the grand jury. Out of those 8 videos, 8 celebrities, 6 men and 2 women, how many of those 8 celebrities were close to being underage or potentially underage?
2 males.
2 males. And of those 8 celebrities, how many of them were intoxicated or under the influence of drugs?
This is going to be all speculation. I just want to preface it by he wouldn't know if they were. Right.
Sure.
Appear to
Let
be.
me rephrase it.
Based on, yes.
Understand. Out of the 8 celebrities who were recorded having intimate relations with Sean Combs, how many of them appeared to be either inebriated or intoxicated or under the influence?
All of them. All of them.
Out of those 8, how many appear to be potentially victimized? How many might have been victimizing?
I think all, to be honest, all.
Were victims
They
or
victims.
were perpetrating?
Victims.
They were all 8 were victimized,
Yeah,
meaning
victim.
this was happening to them and they were inebriated.
Right. Not knowing, I guess, how much proof it was in it, what they was doing.
One of Diddy's victims, Thea Graves, has begun speaking out publicly. On September 24th, 2024, Graves filed a federal lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs and his former bodyguard, Joseph Sherman, accusing them of drugging and sexually assaulting her in 2001 at Bad Boy Records studio in New York City. According to the lawsuit, Diddy and Sherman gave Graves a drink that caused her to lose consciousness. When she woke up, both Diddy and Sherman had allegedly assaulted her.
The latest woman to speak out against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs is from Harris County.
Yeah, our Rekha Mudaraj is here with more on the lawsuit that was filed yesterday. Rekha?
Len and Mia, these are the latest accusations against Sean Combs, and it comes about a week after Combs was indicted on federal charges alleging he used his business empire as a criminal enterprise. Now, yesterday, high-powered attorney Gloria Allred appeared with her client. This is Talia Graves, a Harris County resident who filed a lawsuit against Combs in New York. We are using her name because she has gone public with her claims. Now, in the lawsuit, Graves alleges back in 2001, when she was 25 years old, Combs and his head of security lured her into a meeting at a New York City recording studio where they gave her a drink that caused her to briefly lose consciousness. When she woke up, Graves says she was bound and restrained and was violently raped by Combs. The lawsuit filed Tuesday also claims the alleged assault was recorded and that the video was shown to multiple other men. Graves says she also faced multiple threats that made her stay silent for decades.
The violation I have experienced during the assault has had lasting effects on my body, causing ongoing health problems and complications. The combination of physical and emotional pain has created a cycle of suffering from which it is so hard to break free. I want to continue on this journey towards recovery and healing. I'm glad that he is locked up, but that's a temporary feeling of relief.
54-year-old Combs is in jail facing federal charges, including sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He was denied bail twice after pleading not guilty.
Graves isn't the only victim coming forward. Over 200 victims have filed lawsuits and are being represented by Houston-based attorney Tony Busby. According to Busby, his firm has received over 1,000 calls and verified more than 200 victims, all of whom have medical records and police reports confirming the abuse. The most shocking aspect of these allegations is the age of the minors involved, with some victims reportedly as young as 7 years old when Diddy allegedly abused them.
Tend to name people in these lawsuits. We're not going to do it in interviews. We're not going to do it, without doing our due diligence, because obviously, these types of allegations are very hurtful to people if they're not true, and very hurtful, frankly, if they are true. But if they're true, you shouldn't have been in the room and you shouldn't have been participating. So I anticipate that we're going to start filing lawsuits, and it may not be big names at first, but we have a long list of names, and you might imagine in situations like this, that when a victim tells us that this person was in the room or this person participated, we want to do as much due diligence as humanly possible before we file that case, because in the United States, in almost every state, public filings are in fact public, and when you name somebody in a lawsuit, the press is going to pick it up, and we're aware of that. So we're going to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's, and I expect that there will be some people named in these lawsuits that will raise some eyebrows.
Diddy had a pattern.
Diddy is said to have followed a pattern in his abuse. He would first try to coerce victims by offering them a chance at a successful career, and if they refused, he would either threaten or drug them. Minors who didn't fully understand what was happening were often given drinks spiked with GHB and assaulted while unconscious. One of these victims is reportedly now an A-list celebrity and allegedly has a tape Diddy recorded, which they purchased from the dark web.
Is your client fearful if Diddy does get out?
As you know, I represent other clients, actual victims who have sued Mr. Combs, Diddy, in civil court, and all of them are very apprehensive about their safety if he were to be granted bond. I am confident in the court. I am sure that the court will remain with their previous decision of no bond. I feel like the judge only gave this, let me think about it, just to not make it as obvious. But I have all the confidence in the world and the federal court and the state of New York that they will remain keeping Diddy under no bond, and that all of the victims in this case will be able to proceed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and you mentioned, you don't just represent this man, you represent other alleged victims too, and people involved. Have there been any threats made against any of your clients?
There have been threats from people on the internet, but not from, at least what we don't know, from Diddy to be directly. So my clients have, Mr. Burgess has received several death threats. My client, Mrs. Parham, has been receiving threats, but we don't know if they're just regular people from the internet or if they're actually people who were sent by Diddy.
Do you have any idea where the threats are coming from? Have you done any investigation?
Well, most of the investigation leads us to a lot of burner accounts on Instagram, and we're trying to now sift through possibly working with law enforcement to try to get subpoenas to determine the IP addresses of where those threats were emanating.
So, okay, interesting. We know that the cease and desist letter has now come. Has there been any other pressure of any kind that you or your clients have felt to stop talking?
In general, I feel that the gag order, when we talk about that, Mark Agnifilio wrote about me specifically, and also all of the other plaintiffs in the civil lawsuits to try to have all of us gagged. There's pressure every day that us continuing to talk about this is putting not only our lives in jeopardy, but could be potentially used against us and against.
Diddy's bail is being denied due to his history of pressuring victims. Allegedly, he has been using his children to contact witnesses who are being subpoenaed against him and blackmailing them. A leaked call between Diddy and his son Christian Combs went viral, where Diddy instructed his son to take care of things. However, Diddy's once powerful network is no longer backing him, as they realize the only way to avoid prison is to cooperate with the federal authorities.